Alright, time for another bonus video. The last one reached surprisingly far, so let me quickly introduce what we're doing here for anyone viewing the channel for the first time. I've created a Project Moon tabletop RPG called Stars of the City, and I'm making a tutorial series to explain how to play. Bonus videos like these are meant to cover smaller, less defined concepts. For this bonus video, we'll be going over team composition. The first thing to note about team comps is that roles are a lot less defined. You can totally get by if you never even talk about roles, but if you want to kick ass and take names, you can get some cool synergies by defining what each of your party members should be focused on. Let's define the roles. Most RPGs have a typical tank, healer, DPS trifecta. This is pretty close to what's in Stars of the City, but healer is more of a general support and can be split between buffers and debuffers. In addition, there's stuff to consider for each role that you wouldn't have to worry about in other systems. Starting with tank, you're usually not going to be able to take a bajillion hits for your party. Protection may be fairly common, but eventually you're going to get staggered. What you need to do is focus on allies who are recharging their light. Allies with 3 or more light will be able to defend themselves against what most enemies can throw out, but an ally who's already used their big attacks will only be able to respond with pitiful zero-cost skills. You can also try to take on the role of both tank and DPS if you grab some offensive counter dice at later levels, which will let you defend against more enemy skills and hit back hard if you can get sizable buffs. Tank is honestly the one role that should be defined in every party. It's a role that takes control of the battlefield, and should be played by a player who's confident in their strategizing skills. Next is DPS. This one is simple. Focus on dealing damage, usually through tons of offensive dice, though you could also go for statuses like burn or bleed. Everything the other roles do helps you find an opening. You should probably have a mid-range speed, fast enough to have some control over when you attack, but slow enough to take advantage of the buffs and debuffs your faster allies apply. Work with the tank to find openings to use your skills that have lots of smaller dice. Those do best unopposed. Now onto the supports. This is pretty simple. Debuffers go fast and hit the enemy with effects like Fragile, Paralyze, and Feeble. Buffers spread boons and buffs like Charge, Strength, Endurance, etc. A good buffer should also make sure other characters can use their ailment exploits, so having skills that inflict the ailments your allies make use of is a pretty good idea. Speaking of ailments and boons, you don't need to focus on one of these, but I think most characters will do so instead of focusing on raw power, since ailments give a lot of new opportunities for synergy. I'd recommend against doubling up on ailments or boons that serve similar functions, like Burn and Bleed for damage, Sinking and Tremor for stagger, or Charge and Poise for dice power. It'll just make combat a little too focused on one aspect instead of being more dynamic. In a similar vein, while you should have a bit of crossover, fully going in on one status for the whole team is a bad idea, and I have no issues with GMs occasionally throwing in enemies that hard counter a specific status. Also, keep in mind the egos you slot in. Sometimes it's good to take an ego of a status used by your allies, so you have an option to contribute to their strategy without taking up skills of your own. All in all, go for synergy while keeping your options open in case your first strat doesn't work. That makes sense? Cool. See you next week for the start of character creation. Bye bye!